The rain drummed a relentless beat against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse office. Outside, the London skyline was swallowed by gray mist. Inside, the tension was thick enough to suffocate. Clara adjusted her glasses, her fingers trembling slightly as she held her notepad. She stood across the massive mahogany desk from Julian Vance. He was a man carved from marble and arrogance, the CEO of Vance Global, and, for the past 2 years, her demanding boss. Julian didn't look up from his tablet. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his tailored 3-piece suit didn't have a single crease. He looked every bit the ruthless billionaire the media portrayed him to be. "You're late with the quarterly projections, Clara," Julian said. His voice was a deep, smooth baritone that always sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. "I apologize, Mr. Vance," Clara replied, keeping her voice professional. "The hospital called this morning. My mother's treatment costs have increased again. I had to speak with the billing department." Julian finally looked up. His piercing gray eyes locked onto hers, cold and analytical. "Your personal life is becoming a distraction. I pay you a generous salary to ensure Vance Global runs flawlessly." Clara swallowed the lump of pride in her throat. Generous? Yes, but it was barely enough to cover the experimental treatments keeping her mother alive. She couldn't afford to lose this job. She was trapped. "It won't happen again," she whispered, looking down at her polished shoes. Julian leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. He stared at her for a long, agonizing moment. "Sit down, Clara." She blinked, surprised by the request. She hesitated, then took a seat on the edge of the plush leather chair opposite him. "I have a proposition for you," Julian began, his tone changing from icy to calculating. "And before you speak, I need you to listen to the end." Clara nodded slowly, her heart beginning to race against her ribs. "As you know, the board of directors is voting on the merger with the Sterling Group next month," Julian said, his eyes narrowing. "Old man Sterling is old-fashioned. He believes a stable company requires a stable, family-oriented leader." Clara knew where this was going professionally, but she didn't understand why she was sitting there. "Yes, he values traditional family structures." "Exactly," Julian snapped. "And currently, the tabloids are calling me London's most eligible and reckless bachelor. Yesterday, Sterling hinted that he might back out of the merger if I don't settle down. He wants a man with a wife." "I see," Clara said carefully. "Should I contact a high-end matchmaking service for you?" A dark, dangerous smile touched Julian's lips. "No, matchmakers take too long, and the press would smell a setup. I need someone I already trust, someone who knows my schedule, my habits, and won't make emotional demands." Clara's breath hitched. Her notepad slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the desk. "Mr. Vance, what are you saying?" "I am proposing a marriage of convenience, Clara, to you." The silence in the room became absolute, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Clara stared at him, convinced she had misheard. "You? And me?" she gasped. "But we don't even like each other." "Love is a liability in business," Julian said coldly, as if discussing a stock portfolio. "This is a contract, 1 year. We sign the papers, move into my estate, attend the necessary galas, and convince the world we had a whirlwind romance." "And what do I get out of this farce?" Clara asked, anger finally replacing her shock. Julian reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a check. He slid it across the smooth wood. Clara looked down. The number of zeros made her dizzy. "That is a signing bonus," Julian murmured, his eyes tracking her reaction. "It is more than enough to pay off your mother's hospital debt entirely. Tomorrow, I will fly her to the best private clinic in Switzerland, all expenses covered by me. In return, I get my merger." Clara looked from the check back to Julian's face. He was offering her a lifeline. Her mother would live. But the price was her freedom, her dignity, and playing the role of wife to a monster. "You have 24 hours to decide," Julian said, picking up his tablet again, signaling the meeting was over. "Choose wisely, Clara." Clara stood up on shaky legs, ignoring the check on the desk. She walked out of the office, her mind a chaotic storm. That evening, Clara sat by her mother's hospital bed, watching the machines beep. The doctor had just told her they needed the next payment by Friday, or the treatment would stop. She had no options left. The next morning, Clara walked back into Julian's office. Her head was held high, though her soul felt heavy. Julian looked up, an expectant look in his gray eyes. "Your decision, Clara?" "I will do it," Clara said, her voice steady. "But I have one condition." Julian raised an eyebrow, amused. "A condition? Brave. What is it?" Clara stepped closer to the desk, looking directly into his cold eyes. "The marriage is strictly business. Separate rooms, no touching. And the moment the year is over, I walk away with my money and we never speak again." Julian stood up, walking around the desk until he was standing mere inches from her. His presence was overwhelming, his scent of expensive cologne and rain filling her senses. He reached out his hand. "Deal," Julian whispered, his voice dangerously low. As Clara reached out to shake his hand, Julian didn't just shake it. He pulled her a step closer, his eyes dropping to her lips before locking back onto hers. "Oh, and Clara?" he murmured, a wicked glint in his eyes. "We have a press conference in 2 hours to announce our engagement, so you better start looking like a woman desperately in love."